I'd like to call the meeting to order. Board of County Commissioners, I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start with a moment of silence, please. We'll do a roll call. I'll start with Commissioner Shimke.
Here.
Commissioner Smith is present. Commissioner Culberson.
Here.
And Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Commissioner Cause.
Here.
And all commissioners are present in some form, and also County Administrator Mark Lawfrey is joining us by phone also. We have no public comment call-ins today, so we'll move on to administrative business. Is there any administrative business time, Mr. Lawfrey?
Yeah, Commissioners, Chuck McGaha is here to present an extension for the disaster declaration. I'll let Chuck take it from there.
Okay. Mr. McGaha, how are you today?
Doing well, Commissioners. Thank you. Well, the COVID-19 virus has not let up, and where we still have many issues for us to continue to receive state and federal assistance, we need to extend our local declaration. I think Jamie had already explained to you that this coming up, our old one, which was 60 days back in March, will come to an end on the 15th. So this one here will extend this another 60 days.
Okay.
Now, so we're looking at July 13th for this next process.
Okay.
We need to have the declaration signed by the Board of County Commissioners to move forward, and this would just be an extension of the original resolution 2020-10.
Okay. So I entertain a motion to authorize the board to sign the extension on the declaration disaster declaration.
I do have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. And that's Commissioner Stevens asking the question.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Stevens. Would it be, two questions, would it be in order for since the governor's time frame to enter into phase 3 and beyond that would be June 15th, would it be in order to extend this? Could we change the date to a 30-day extension and then, if need be, come back and revisit that? That would be one question I would have, and maybe maybe Mr. Van Paris could address that. And then the second question would be, could we add a clause that would state that, notwithstanding the orders on the part of the state, but if there was going to be any further county implemented stay-at-home orders, that would come before the board for at least collaboration and discussion prior to implementation of any further stay-at-home orders. Would that be in order to amend this?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of County Commissioners, good morning. This is David Van Paris. Commissioner Stephen, to address your question directly, and they're both very germane, I'd like to break it into two parts. The first would be to consider the declaration of an emergency to amend that to 30 days rather than 60 days. That's certainly a prerogative of the board. I would suggest that a 60-day extension really does not impact the county in any adverse fashion. The emergency declaration does not set, and Mr. McGaha, please step in at any time, does not set any parameters for restrictions on activity. It merely declares that an emergency situation exists and allows the county to participate in state and federal projects. You can certainly rescind that declaration at any time. I think the basis for the Yeah. The extension is simply to allow for the fact that I think it's the anticipation of those who have knowledge of this matter far superior to mine, that this event will be continuing past, or at least until July 13th, very likely past it. But I would suggest that the 60-day extension does not extend any county restrictions or state restrictions. The second provision, or second question you raised, is whether it would be appropriate to include an amendment that would state that any restrictions imposed by the county, which I would suggest would be via your health officer, be brought forward and approved by this board. I would only suggest that for a housekeeping matter, we keep the two separate. The emergency declaration, again, merely states that there is an emergency situation and provides benefit to the county through that declaration. It does not set specific restrictions. I'll refer to it as a stay-at-home order that was issued by your health officer and approved by this board does set restrictions. And the consideration of your proposal would probably be best brought up when that matter comes back before this board, which I believe will be next Wednesday. So for housekeeping purposes, I would suggest they be kept separate.
Okay, so next Wednesday, what's coming up before us next Wednesday related to that?
Well, it's my understanding from a discussion I had with you yesterday that there's a possibility that the county might consider the extension of the health officer's order. If I'm incorrect, then I'm incorrect, and I would happily stand corrected.
I think that this was actually the order that I was discussing, was this extension of this emergency order. I just think that, if we go in 30-day increments and we make it very clear. So far, we've worked very collaboratively with all of the parties involved. In fact, this commission and this health officer and our county has been very united and very, we've done everything. And as far as I'm concerned, compared or looking at other counties and surrounding areas, we work very well with our Mr. Miller and with our county health officer, and I think everybody's working as a team, and that's the way we should keep it. But I'm just wondering if extending an emergency order like this 60 days perhaps is maybe 30 days, and then we can revisit it 30 days later. Maybe this emergency will not be continuing clear into all through the summer and all through the fall. Maybe we can get things back to normal. And when I look at the case numbers, it's looking good, except for in our correctional facilities, unfortunately. And I do hold the state accountable for that. And the county can do what we can do, but we're basically excluded from a lot of that situation. But I think I've had a lot of concern expressed that maybe before we have any additional stay-at-home orders issued on the part of the county, that perhaps that should come in front of the Board of Commissioners for at least discussion so it can be done in a collaborative manner. And that's the way we've been functioning so far, but I guess those are two questions I have, and maybe everybody else can weigh in on that.
Commissioners, if I might, this is Mark Lawtree, County Administrator. One, the disaster declaration does not make it a disaster. The disaster exists. We're just wanting the declaration so we can continue to take advantage of any federal funding that would come down. 30 days or 60 days, I guess it doesn't really matter, other than we would just have to come back for you twice as often. As far as the stay-at-home order, there's no anticipation by myself or the health officer that there would be any additional orders coming from the health officer unless things would take a drastic turn for the worse, which we certainly hope would not. But as you mentioned, we've worked pretty much in conjunction with the board throughout. I don't see any reason why that would change. It sounds like maybe this is a problem or a solution looking for a problem that doesn't exist.
Like I said, it's no different than extending it when there's a flood or a tornado.
Commissioners, the way this resolution is designed, it allows us to terminate earlier if we wish, earlier
Yeah.
than that 60 days. So
That's what it says.
the caveat's in there.
So,
Chuck, I just had a quick question. How closely are we tracking all of the expenditures? I mean, I know everything is being tracked, but as far as being able to report real time or not, it seems like most of the cases, the vast majority of cases, are coming out of the correctional facility. And any of the inmates specifically, I mean, that's going to be a state burden and a state cost and isn't affiliated with the county or our health officer or anything else. So when the majority of the cases are coming out of the state, the state should be accountable and the state should be responsible. What has been our overhead or burden to date relative to the pandemic? Any idea?
I could not tell you what the burn rate is as far as dollar amount at this point.
Okay.
The Health Department is keeping very close track of their expenditures up there. All of our personal protective equipment that we're purchasing for, and I say purchasing, acquiring for first responders, hospitals, and things of this nature is coming from the Strategic National Stockpile in the state of Kansas at this time. So we're trying to limit our expenditures across, doing it just like we would do on a normal day-to-day basis. We got overtime cost, of course.
Sure.
That's with this, but we will have a cost. But like you said, the inmates at the Lansing Correctional Facility is the state's issue, but the community is our issue.
Understood.
That we're dealing with, and we're trying to take care of both.
Not that it needs to be on a daily or weekly, but even if we could get a monthly type update, I'm just curious the
Sure.
cost the county is incurring relative to the pandemic. So
probably the only way we're
Well,
going to get our money.
it sounds like the state's going to require us to prove that before they're going
Before
to
we
give us
get
any
our
of that
federal
money. Also,
Did you get that email yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't a good one.
no.
Any other questions of Mr. McGaha? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the extension of the emergency declaration.
so just right before we do that, Mike, are you on the same page now that this order doesn't have anything to do with extending stay-at-home orders or closing businesses? This is just simply a declaration letting the feds in the state know that Leavenworth County is still under an emergency for COVID-19. So,
Yeah, I am on the same page on that. I do think that, I don't mind if the board goes 60 days, but I'm hopeful that if we follow the governor's plan, it looks like by June 15th, we ought to be, I think we should do it in the 30-day increment and then come back, and if it's still an emergency situation, that we review this. Of course, we meet every week. It doesn't matter if we do 30 days, we'll come back and look at it. But I just would like to have assurance, and maybe Mark can do this, is that before we would, on a county basis, implement any additional stay-at-home orders just on the county basis, that the county commissioners would be collaboratively approached and that we would be consulted before that would happen.
I'm sure we will be, but nobody's talking about that at this time.
That's just what my concerns are, and I want
Okay.
to put those out there.
Well, I believe this disaster is going to last longer than the 60 days. This is being extended because there's going to be some economic impacts that we have to deal with as this board as we enter into our budget season.
Well, and that may be, but we can always revisit this.
Any other questions? Then entertain a motion.
was this for 60 or 90?
60.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Cos. Motion to extend the emergency order for 60 days.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Van Perry?
Well, Mr. Chairman, just for the purpose of the minutes, to clarify Commissioner Cos's motion, I believe there was earlier reference to Resolution 2020-10, if that could be included.
Please include that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Then voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cos votes aye.
Commissioner Stephen votes aye.
All right. Thank you. Okay, is there any other administrative business? Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck.
Is there any other administrative business this time?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Anybody have any questions or concerns on any items on the consent agenda? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cos votes aye.
Commissioner Stevens votes aye.
All right, thank you. All right, we're ready for Public Works. Mr. Knoll, how are you today?
Good. How's the board doing today?
We're doing
Yeah.
fine.
Good morning, Bill.
As long as we get bids on bridges, we're doing great.
So far, so good on that. Organize myself here. All right. Our first board item action is to consider a motion to award the contract for the E58 bid. We did receive 5 bids. They were from AM Coron and Sons, Lina Weaver Construction, King's Construction Company, LG Barkus and Sons, and Kissick Construction. The engineer's estimate on the project was $1,554,535. The low bid on the project was AM Coron and Sons, with a bid of $1,242,680.98. It is our recommendation that we accept this bid and move forward with the project. They are ready to start immediately. In fact, we've scheduled the pre-con meeting contingent upon the approval of the contract for Monday, and they would like to be out there by the end of next week, if possible, doing some demolition work with their subcontractors. I don't know if the board has any questions regarding the contract or the bids.
It looks like it's all standard, and you got several bids. That was good. It's below engineer's estimate. I'm ready for Commissioner Culberson to make his motion.
And December 4th, is that the date, completion date, or was it prior to that?
December 3rd is the date at which the contract specifies that the project has to be accepted by the county, after which time the contractor does receive a penalty of $500 per day for non-completion. And so obviously we're at the mercy of the contractor if they're going to pay that $500 a day penalty. I'm sure that they're anticipating not paying it. I've had discussions with the individual who bid the project out of Emporia, and the schedule is fairly tight, but it does have some room for weather and other
Absolutely.
slowdowns. So it is a realistic schedule, but it is a tight one to try to get it done in this calendar year.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Knoll, about E58? Then I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the bid from AM Coron and Son for E58 bridge replacement project in the amount of $1,242,680.98.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cos votes aye.
Commissioner Stevens votes aye.
Thank you.
Bill, just for, again, it's all pretty cut and dry, but, we do try to work locally. Obviously, we did have a couple of local bidders. They do need to be within a 5% variance to offset any, again, financial impact, obviously, in working locally. So I don't know that everybody, knows that, but ultimately that is an internal policy, right? Is if we can work locally, we try to until it's no longer economically viable, right?
Yep. Yep, I'm aware of that. And Lina Weaver was the second. Lina Weaver Construction was the second lowest bid, but they were not within that 5% threshold. And so, obviously, we're making that recommendation based upon the fact that AM Coron was more than 5% less. I know that AM Coron has built a lot of these structures along the Turnpike and I-70, these concrete truss type bridge structures. And so I think that they possess the experience as well to
Sure.
do a good job for us.
Nope, sounds great.
All right.
Okay. The next board action item we have for consideration is the selection of the construction engineering inspection services for the 178th Street project between Kansas and Evans. We received two separate proposals for this project. It was a recommendation of Olson and Associates to accept the proposal prepared by McAfee Henderson Solutions. We did have a selection committee hearing regarding this. It is also the opinion of the committee to accept that proposal from McAfee Henderson Solutions. One key difference between the two proposals, if you're not familiar with them, is that McAfee Henderson Solutions is offering the services of one of the principal owners of the company because he is available for the inspection. And so we're getting a very qualified, very experienced inspector. Both are suited for the project, though, and meet the qualifications, but their hourly cost was within $1 of each other. And so the recommendation is based upon the experience they are bringing to the table for this project.
They've done a lot of inspections for the county. Anybody have any questions on the inspection services for 178th Street? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
Make a motion to accept the selection committee's recommendation for the 178th Street construction inspection services to be awarded to McAfee Henderson Solutions. Contract amount $103,454.50.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion and voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cos votes aye.
Commissioner Stephen votes aye.
All right, thank you. Okay.
One additional note on 178th Street, the construction bids will be opened on Friday, I believe at 10 o'clock. And so we will have bid tabs that are coming out by Friday afternoon, hopefully for that project as well.
Okay.
It has a construction window that lasts until mid-October.
Feels like mid-October out there now.
Yeah, it does. All right. The next board item action is the one that we discussed last week during work session. This is a comprehensive capital improvement plan for Leavenworth County's Road and Bridge Department. The plan before you today has one amendment from the plan that was here last week during the work session. And it is the inclusion of the SH-22 bridge structure on County Route 25. After reviewing this plan with the staff out of the Road and Bridge shop, it had been identified in the past multiple times, and it was we did a site inspection ourselves on that, and we need to immediately move forward with that.
It'd be the first drainage structure north of County or K32, correct?
No, it would be south of there. It's the one right as you're going down. There's a big flat section to the north, and then you rise up that hill.
Yeah, it's north of K32.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be south of Loring.
Yep.
Right.
Yes. That's correct. It's an old concrete truss structure.
Yep.
The north approach has some pretty severe stress cracking, and there's a few pothole sections within the bridge. There's spalling around the drains. It is a very similar structure to that of E58.
Some old structures that don't have epoxy rebar on them, they just seem to
And so
swell and break.
we would like to. That is the adjustment. There are some other notes from this. The The next board item that we have today is a resolution. So contingent upon the approval of a comprehensive capital improvement plan, state statute allows the county to separate their road and bridge special capital improvement fund from the general capital improvement fund. You cannot do that per state statute if you do not have an approved capital improvement plan. So that is something that I know that the county clerk had prepared in the past, but without that capital improvement plan, we couldn't do this next board action item. We can discuss this capital improvement plan. I know it's fairly comprehensive with a lot of funds to whatever depth you guys would feel comfortable with today.
We can discuss it today, but boards change and capital improvement plans change, so
Yeah, and this
as
will be
long as we got one in place that meets our needs, I think.
This will be a working document, like you're stating, Chairman. As we get bids on projects, we will be adjusting it. As prices change, we'll be adjusting it. We will bring it back in front of the board on an annual or biannual basis, depending on when adjustments need to be made. Sales tax collections, obviously, we're anticipating a reduction in this year's, which we reflected in this document. But as sales tax collections for the projects fluctuates, that would obviously create an immediate amendment. Also, as funds are available for capital, the 215 fund for capital improvements, adjustments will need to be made. Currently, it's based upon previous year's budget approvals, and the township funds are based upon fairly low construction averages that are equally distributed, which is obviously not going to be the case. And so as construction trends dictate, those numbers will also be reflected in but we tried to conservatively put together as the most accurate plan that we could.
I say it's a plan, it's a forecast. Hopefully you build one that's more conservative rather than less. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, if it outperforms, you move projects up in priority. So, and I think it's worth reiterating that this is a fairly common or best practice, just something that's been obviously missing for a long time. So
yeah, and if we didn't have one of these, or internally, we really need one with the number of projects that are currently in design and getting ready to move towards construction. We really need to have a ledger sheet such as this to work through the township funds and the different funds that projects are going to be paid for out of.
This is Commissioner Stephen, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I would like Mr. Knoll, could you address, or just for informational purposes, like we had business about on this 158th project, how if we can get KDOT to work with us on the stoplight there at K32, how that would all coordinate together with their funding and our funding and the potential there.
The potential for that is based upon a joint agreement that we would have to enter with KDOT. Currently, the 158th Street project is in the capital improvement plan. I believe it's in let me double check this to make sure I'm speaking correctly.
2021, I think.
Yeah, 2021. And that it is put in here as based upon if we were to receive any grant funding for that project. Currently, that project has an anticipated cost of approximately $2.6 million. And so without receiving some grant funding, that project really puts us in the red. And so we anticipated that project being placed into the capital improvement plan at this time as a matching funding. And so that project includes a right-hand turn lane for westbound K32 traffic, and an acceleration lane for traffic traveling westbound turning north onto 158th Street. Currently, it does not include a stoplight. Stoplights on KDOT routes have to be approved and put in place by KDOT, more or less. And so currently, we're still awaiting that traffic study. Traffic patterns are greatly reduced at this time. And so when we have that traffic study and KDOT makes a determination of the necessity for that stoplight, that would be the appropriate time in the future to visit the capital improvement plan and see how that could fit into the capital improvement plan. But until we have those traffic figures from KDOT, and KDOT's made a determination of whether or not it's a project that they're going to be entertaining or engaging with us on, it is not, the stoplight itself is not included, just the 158th Street project.
Okay, thank you. And we have made our views known to them about, as far as our letter and to the representatives and Senator Braun. So
Yes, we have.
Any other questions on the capital improvement plan? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 2020-18.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the resolution? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cos votes aye.
Commissioner Stephen votes aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bill, just one, thank you. I mean, I don't know what day this is, you having now been with the county. I know staff has put a tremendous amount of work in this as well, so that's very exciting to see it moving forward, so thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. The next board action item is a resolution, and it is the Special Highway Improvement Fund creation. And like I previously stated, it's contingent upon the adoption of a capital improvement plan. And so at this time, we could entertain a motion. I can answer any questions about it. This resolution was actually prepared by the county clerk previously. I believe Mr. Van Paris has reviewed it. And we have identified the amount of funding that we would be transferring out of the general fund, the general capital improvement fund that the county currently has, that is currently line item for road and bridge projects that we're
Okay.
going to then transfer.
That was the resolution we just approved that was
Actually-
related to the CIP, wasn't it?
Well, actually, you have to approve the CIP.
Okay.
And then
All right.
secondary to that, per state statute. you
So we
have
need to
approve the
rescind what we
resolution.
just did. No, we're okay. All right.
Proceed.
All right. I thought they were tied together.
They are tied together, but they are separate action items because
One
you
can't exist without
You have
the
to have the one created by resolution first prior to the creation
Oh,
of the
okay.
action fund.
All right.
And I don't know if it's more of a question for you, Bill, or since Janet isn't with us today, or maybe even Mr. Lawfrey, but just, again, any downside implications to the creation and/or transfer as far as general operating?
Mr.
This
Chair.
is Mark Lawfrey, County Administrator. This really allows us to start setting aside money on a long-term basis for projects so that we don't have an expenditure that happens like once in a year. We can spread that cost out over several years. So this is a good thing.
No, I agree. I'm just, again, in our current economic environment, my question was more this. So if we're still trying to figure out what the financial impacts are, to the county, obviously through property tax collections on down the list. And so when the transfer of these funds, and I agree, it's the right thing to do in strategic planning, does it put us in any type of short-term, cash position, trying to forecast, the end of 2020 or even into 2021 where there could be financial shortfalls, not having as much flexibility if...
Well, I think as Mr. Knoll had said, it's a plan. So we put it into place. This is what we plan to do. However, if as we get towards the end of the year, it looks like we're going to be short revenues or something like that, we do not have to make those transfers. It's just this allows us to if possible. So we'll reevaluate before we do that. And if we had to, we would adjust it, and then Mr. Knoll would update the CIP to reflect those changes.
I was making sure there wasn't anything as far as immediate, transfer and allocation when there's so many variables. So, very good. Thank you.
To follow up on that, until we've actually signed a contract on these projects, we haven't designated these funds to any specific use. So if they had to be reallocated for other uses, I believe that that is something you could do. So this is just a plan until you have a contract in place on a specific project.
Very good.
Okay. So what would the motion you need today?
Just to approve the resolution that creating the special road and bridge capital improvement fund.
So there is no resolution number?
There
18.
is it. I have one. I do not have a resolution number here on my document.
Yeah, this one has XX. So.
Yeah, I just provided the document to the.
Okay. Was it the 2020-18, the one we just approved?
Mr. Chairman, Mark, I'm not certain if we had assigned a number to it. You can approve the resolution and assign a number at a later time and simply amend your minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the multi-year capital improvement plan special highway improvement fund creation.
By resolution.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
By resolution.
Okay. Have a motion, to have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any further discussion? Voting.
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cos votes aye.
And Mr. Stevens votes aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, again, this is Dave Van Paris, in consultation with your administrative secretary and Mark, certainly, just for clarification, the intent of the board was to approve a resolution creating a capital improvement fund for the Road and Bridge Department of the county, followed by a motion to approve the capital improvement plan as presented by Mr. Knoll. A declaration that that was the intent of the board would simply be inserted in the minutes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anything else, Mr. Knoll?
I don't believe so at this
All right.
time. We have a quarterly report. So.
All right. Yeah. You want to do your quarterly report now? I mean, we in your setting there?
I can, if you guys are.
Does that mess with anybody else's schedule? All right. Thank you, Tammy and Aaron.
So, I believe that we've made a lot of progress over the last quarter in Public Works. My first day was May 28th, so that began during this past quarter. We did start on a Friday, so it's an unusual start date. Road and Bridge, we have, from a county shop maintenance perspective, we are the majority of the way through the dust abatement project preparations. We currently only have a few Group 3 roads left to do maintenance on, replace a couple crossroad culverts, but those aren't scheduled to commence until mid-August or the beginning of August. And we are still working with and putting diligent pressure in following the schedules of AT&T. So far, that has been fairly successful in getting them moving, at least in my time over the past 2 months.
Bill, just real quick, I think in Mark's update, due to the number of contractors, they were able to maybe accelerate their initial AT&T relocation. So as of right now, again, I realize things change. There's a high probability that those projects could still be completed in 2020 versus a couple months ago we thought may have to be delayed to 2021.
Yeah, especially dust abatement Group 3 was the main concern. There was permitting issues regarding that, and so those issues were resolved, and then they did get 3 separate contractor groups out there and broke that group 3 into 3 separate contracts. And so their anticipation has moved from originally maybe not until sometime in September. Then we got them back to August 15th, and now they're saying possibly as early as mid to late July, depending on the weather. And so and we've been communicating back and forth with Bettis continuously as these things have been occurring, and they are currently out there working with several crews. And so very conservatively hopeful that I believe that there is a good possibility that we can finish all the dust abatement projects this year, weather permitting, as long as we don't run into an extremely wet period or some sort of other circumstances contingent upon. Right now, all the schedules that we have been provided by both Bettis and McEnany do have them concluding during this construction season.
Yeah, my fear was with some of those contractors, if they thought they had the work queued up for April, and then it moved to fall, and then it's into July, based on their other schedules, would that create conflict on their end? So that's very positive, so thank you.
Yeah, I don't believe, I think that we were far enough out with specifically Bettis and Group 3 that they understand that we're really wanting that project completed this year, and that they're right now we're in their schedule. So as long as AT&T doesn't cause us any huge delays, I anticipate that they'll be out there to complete that.
I'll go ahead and knock on wood
We
there.
were told in October it'd be 120 days,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, I think that they.
please understand our frustration here
Yeah,
when it comes to that.
It's going to be more than 120 days from the March.
We talked about it more than 120 days.
Yeah, and in McEnany, now that they've commenced in Group 7 and got, we officially kicked off this week with some of the paving, and it's been a slow go at the beginning. The contractor had purchased a brand new paver that was fully automated and needed to be calibrated. I believe they had to take it back into their shop in order to work on some of the calibrations. And so it has began, and I'm fairly happy with the way it's going so far. It's just going slow. But the quality of the asphalt and the road base preparation so far has looked pretty good.
Okay.
And so I'm hopeful that as the weather warms up and as they get their crews going, I believe this is their first job of the year. They hadn't done anything prior to this, that they'll become much faster, and that we'll see some really good progress behind us. But I anticipate dry weather. Group 7 will be complete mid next week at the rate that we're currently
Okay.
moving. The snow events were all pretty much prior to me joining Leavenworth County, but they were addressed, and the salt supply lasted throughout the winter. We do still have some salt in our storage facilities, and we will be purchasing additional salt here early in the summer to completely fill those domes and salt bins in order to have that on hand prior to October. And so that'll be something that midsummer that we go ahead and order and get as much on hand as we possibly can hold in order to have that in place prior to the winter season. We've been working hard to find enough flaggers and mowers and interns to work here for the summer. I think we've been more successful than in the previous years. We still, I believe, have possibly one flagger position available, but we have filled, I believe, all of the mower positions and the intern positions that we intended to do.
And Mr. Knoll, back to the salt, were you going to wait till after we bid it for next year to fill up?
Yes.
Okay, you've exhausted the contract?
No, the contract's not fully exhausted, so what we couldn't get still, we were going to go ahead and order, because I believe
Okay.
that contract doesn't expire until, I want to say June.
June or July,
Yeah,
probably.
and we still had some ton,
Right.
I don't know the
Yeah, we were
exact figure.
almost 66,000 purchased last week. based on the register, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're going to get what we can off of that previous contract. From my experience, now obviously,
Should have been about 3,000 ton.
yeah, obviously, fuel prices are way down right now, so I don't know how that's affecting the salt price.
Last month, they were paying you to take it.
Fuel?
Yeah, fuel.
Yeah. Fuel prices were
Yeah.
extremely low when we just refilled the tank. But the, I don't know about the salt price. So
Okay.
from my experience, I've never seen it do more than be flat. I've never seen it go down. Just continuously creeps up over the course of the past
Right.
10 years. So,
Must be because OPEC's not involved.
yeah. So.
Well, they are on the shipping part of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they ship it up here, so we will get what we can off of the previous contract, and then we will move forward. We'll probably have them mix some of the material later in the year, even, and try to get as much as we possibly can into our storage facilities.
Bill, I don't know if this is more of a question for you or maybe for Mark, but have you had a chance to start working with our new purchasing coordinator? I mean, as we look across, I mean, all of the different departments at the county, material is obviously one of the largest expenses we have. That all comes from Public Works. So I was just curious if you've had a chance to.
We've met. We haven't really gone through too many processes together yet.
Okay.
And, but we will be. I think that one of the things that I was able to bring into the bridge bids is a more comprehensive list of contractors. So we'll be reviewing those contractor lists that we send out, like the salt bids to, and make sure that we're including all the different salt distribution facilities. I believe Central Salt's a lot of the time low bidder on a lot of those projects, but we will do our best to make sure and get as many bids as we possibly can to try to secure the lowest price.
And while pricing is obviously critical, I'm sure we're doing everything we can to work with our other local municipalities to see if we can buy in larger volumes and savings. I think this is going to be a year and next year where any and all savings we should be working really aggressive to try to recognize. So
Yep.
hopefully maybe some of the cities will be a little more willing to work with us, knowing that we're all in a shortfall position. So
Well, we always do salt with all the cities in the
Right.
county. But we could do other things like fuel, stuff like that.
I'm sure.
Can't picture fuel getting too much cheaper.
No.
It was 48. I believe it was 48 cents a gallon last time we bought fuel. We've sent out some bid specs for the graders. We currently have produced a mower tractor bid spec. And we have purchased a replacement mower for one that we had received the insurance money for, which I believe is what you had referred to last week, Commissioner Stephen, when you asked a question about I believe it was $105,000. And we do have a equipment replacement spreadsheet with some anticipated costs, so we can budget and not see the fluctuations in the necessary funding, much like the capital improvement plan, where we can look at what we have and what we need. We worked quickly over the past few months to try to finish a equipment replacement schedule that allowed us to maintain a pretty level funding balance without a lot of fluctuations. And so I think that's important moving forward, so you don't see several $100,000 worth of fluctuation when you're talking about large equipment purchases. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that before any of that before.
No, it just helps when we have everything on an amortization schedule. It kind of softens the blow when you got to replace it.
Yeah. Yes, it does. You got to plan ahead. Obviously, noxious weed chemical sales have been affected by the current COVID situation. We have moved to taking orders online and delivering those to the courthouse on a daily basis. I believe that has gone fairly well. I haven't received a lot of complaints, and we have sold quite a bit of chemical. And so we are continuing that process currently, as it seems to have been working fairly well. We did some clearing work for the right-of-way projects with noxious weed, and are continuing to do right-of-way clearing and tree trimming. Currently, we have the mowers out mowing the various roads, and we are speccing the purchase of a new mower. In those specifications, did include I believe it's about a 20 horsepower increase in the engine size. One of the current tractors we have, they believe it's slightly underpowered and it overheats quite often and has been in the shop continuously. And so that is the reasoning behind some of the bid specs. From an engineering perspective, I think we've had a lot of movement over the past 2 months specifically, and throughout the entire quarter prior to my start date. So the McIntyre project, that project was completed prior to this quarter, and it has been completely closed out at this time. Eisenhower Road is currently set for a September 1st bid letting, subject to any commissioner input or change, with a December to December 12 to 13 month construction window. The design is complete. The plans are available on the county website currently, and the water line plans have been submitted to the water district for the water line relocation. I believe that we have worked out a lot of the kinks that had to do with the lighting poles along the way, and the responsibility of the cities for those in the future. The dust abatement projects they have officially started for the year. They are in Group 7, and will continue to follow AT&T. And right now, we don't anticipate any delays due to AT&T. McInerney should be able to continue with all of their paving with AT&T out of the way. The one group that McInerney is not doing, Group 3, is the one we currently are working with AT&T that has multiple contractors on site. We're anticipating August 1st or thereabout start date. Obviously, as AT&T works through that process, we'll be doing weekly updates with them and communicating with them on a continuous basis, back and forth with Bettis to try to make sure that they start that project as soon as possible. 235th Street's currently still under design. It's nearly complete. The borings were completed on the hill sections to ensure the rock in those areas were diggable, or was diggable, and the cross sections were improved to include asphalt instead of double chip and seal for that project. 178th Street, the construction bid opening is May 15th, which is this Friday, and it has an October completion within that proposal. Obviously, we have the inspection services that we signed the contract on today, and we're hopeful that that thing can start as early as June 15th, but I believe it allows for a window start date of, I believe it's around July 10th.
Have you had much interest in contractors on this job?
Yeah, I believe on Drexel there's been 10 contractors who have pulled the plan set, and so we've had multiple suppliers who've called us regarding county bid specs. So I think there are several general contractors out there who are at least actively putting together pricing on it.
Okay.
We've had a couple different culvert suppliers call us about our specs, so that means that we probably have at least 2, if not more. I've personally spoke to 3 different contractors. None of them guaranteed they were going to bid the project, but they all seem to be really interested in supplying a bid for it. The bridge projects, we have E58, and we reviewed it earlier today with the contract that was approved for AM Coron and Sons. We will have a pre-con meeting on Monday morning at the site to review the site with both them and the subcontractors. And they are wanting to start as soon as their bonds are received back from their Iowa headquarters. So they've got we will supply them with the contract. They will sign that contract and submit their bonds. As soon as we have the bonds, we will issue a notice to proceed. So after the meeting, we will get that contract signed and we will overnight it to their Iowa location in order to have that there so they can return it by Monday for the pre-con. Has a completion date on the contract of 12/3/2020.
Bill, earlier we talked about having the fees associated with missing deadlines, specific to that project. And I know that's something we've talked about in the past, as we should be looking at any and all projects. It shouldn't be specific to just a bridge or a roadway.
Yep.
So is that something now we're looking at in any and all contracts as far as holding our contractors accountable and hitting dates?
Yes, so that same $500 a day is in the 178th Street contract. I believe it's October 15th. I'd have to verify that date, but I believe it's October 15th is the completion date for that project. So yes, generally I'm a huge supporter of having some sort of
Penalty?
penalty.
'Cause I don't think that's something we've commonly done, so I'm excited to see. It is something we have commonly done.
Not on a regular basis, Commissioner. I think it is, obviously, Mr. Knoll believes it's a good idea, so I would agree. Mr. Lawfrey, I think, has encouraged that as well.
I think it's great.
It'd be better if we could just get it to attach to public utilities.
AT&T.
I didn't say any, I didn't mention any names.
That's all right,
but
I will.
I'll just say public utilities.
Okay.
The following bridges on our quarterly update are currently nearing completion. HP 19 was the one that we had previously did the supplemental for to address the Corps of Engineers permit due to the Kansas Historical Preservation Office. Those plans are completed, and we're just trying to get the permitting necessary to move that towards construction. SH30, we finished the paperwork, and Lauren did a lot of work on this because it was a lot of paperwork to receive the grant. And we did receive the $50,000. We were about to be passed on that opportunity, but we were able to submit the design cost for that project prior to construction in order to receive the full amount that we were obligated for that.
Way to go, Lauren.
Yeah, she did a really good job of getting that organized. A49 is under design, and it's part of the 4-bridge package that Benish is currently working on. These are all currently under design. They've been under design a long time. I'm hopeful that we can get these things back fairly quickly from them and get these things finished up. We have one that's on hold, T34, and it can be completed elevation-wise. The plans are, the bridge structure itself has a design on it, but the elevations are awaiting the completion of the dust abatement project in order to make sure that we're tying in correctly with our approaches.
And that's 219th Street?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so I'm hopeful within the next 30 to 45 days we'll have all of those projects on the shelf. They had previously submitted some plan sets to us maybe 6 or 9 months ago. We're well past a normal design window, and we need to have these finished. County Route 1, is one of the other projects listed. Terracon was out there last week and completed some borings. We're waiting their asphalt analysis. 5 borings were taken at crack locations to determine whether the cracks that are occurring on the asphalt roadway are from subsurface failures or if they are within the 4 inches that was overlaid there last year. I will give you a report when I will provide that as part of the weekly report, and we can discuss that moving forward. And then we were awarded a high-risk rural roads grant for signage for $129,825 over the last few weeks. And we have sent out a request for proposals for the design and inspection of that per KDOT specifications. That is a 100% grant that has no matching funds required. It is on County Routes 13 and 14 in the north part of the county. And then we've been working with KDOT. I've had several conference calls and working on the higher risk rural roads, the local safety plan. I had just previously completed this entire process prior to joining Leavenworth County. It's a comprehensive process that allows you to work with KDOT's contractor to identify areas that you could receive future grant funding for. So it's important that we identify areas that meet the current HRRR funding criteria. There are larger projects like 158th Street that could see safety improvements, but historically the HRRR grants have all been under $450,000, and so they generally aren't there to fund a $2.5 million project. So
Yeah, it doesn't build roads.
Well, I kind of recall Jefferson County always getting roads repaired with this money, and we'd get signs.
Yeah, and so we previously, I've been successful in receiving 5 of these HRRR grants with Jefferson County. We had done some projects through curve sections where we had crash data and had a lot of crashes. There was shoulder drop off at these locations, and we were able to pave some 5-foot shoulders through curve sections. The latest one that I gotten through this same HRRR cycle that Leavenworth County received the signs. We had gotten a turning lane and a decel lane and an acceleration lane added to a curve section where there was an entrance to a state park. And so we will be working diligently to make sure that some of the sections of roadway that meet the criteria here in Leavenworth County get added to that local road safety plan. I can specifically name one section that on County Route, I believe it's County Route 5, Tonganoxie Road near Stranger Creek. Driving that section of roadway, that would be one that would meet all of the criteria of the HRRR to add some 6-foot graveled or paved shoulders in the curve sections prior to the bridge and leaving the bridge area.
So, Bill, you work with the sheriff's department. You and your team work with the sheriff's department, and we have accident data that we can look at relative to prioritization of either projects or signage or anything else. And so, I guess my question was more about, you can have an area that has 5 accidents, and you can have an area that has 10 accidents, and it would seem like, wow, that's twice the number of accidents. But the traffic count may suppose that other area roadway gets 2,000 cars a day, and the one that had the more accidents had 10,000 cars a day, right? So as a percentage, they don't necessarily align. All that analysis is done, correct?
Some of that analysis is done.
Okay.
What they do and what KDOT's contractor will do is they'll provide a heat map. And so it will show all of your roads within your federal aid system and where the accidents are occurring. And then you can, as a county, you need to take the information that they are providing you and determine whether or not these locations are possible future grant funding locations. Yes, it is important to identify all of your areas of accidents, but for your local road safety plan, those that you are going to apply, that you may apply for over the next decade or so for grant funding for, need to be identified in there. And so you may have accident areas that are on off-system roads. You may have accident areas that are huge stretches of roadway like 158th Street. That are huge projects that cost a lot more money than what they are currently funding. And so it is important to identify the roads that are going to be applicable to the HRRR program in KDOT.
Okay.
And that is only a certain percentage, maybe 35 or 40% of your roads are even going to, here in the county, that we're going to do an analysis on for the heat map. We'll provide all that crash data. They actually pull a lot of that from the Highway Patrol. They're generating a lot of that data themselves because other counties don't have the robust system that we would have here, where we're working with the Sheriff's Department like we do to collect that data. And so they go out to the Highway Patrol website and collect a lot of that information, then come back to compare it to what people here have experienced. And so I'll be working with the road superintendents who are really familiar with, and the road foremen who are familiar with the county in order to identify those areas that are within the FAS routes that could see safety improvements under probably $500,000 that are significant, that meet the criteria of the HRRR program.
Well, I'm sure you can appreciate, we obviously get a lot of feedback, and depending on where you live, it's if you think your road's unsafe, they think it's the most unsafe road in the county because it's the one that they live on. And it's nice to have data to use. And when I say, again, accidents happen throughout the county, it's nice to know when they're statistically significant relative to traffic count.
Yeah, because if you have an area where you've had 10 injury accidents and you're getting 100 cars a day, 10 injury accidents in a 12-month period, and you have 100 cars a day, and you have an area where you've gotten 10 injury accidents, but you have 6,000 cars a day, your per-car crash rate's significantly different. But
Correct.
And you're looking at areas, I mean, I know there's K-State studies out that are part of the HRRR program that demonstrate that if you have a gravel road with over 200 vehicles a day, you're something like 175% more likely to have an injury accident on that road than you are a similar road that's hard surfaced. And so those are all criteria that you can highlight in your application because they are from studies that have been completed here in the state of Kansas through the transportation program. And so by doing those things and relating these projects back to the current studies, you're building your case and creating your point values that are necessary to get some of the funding. And so similar to the application through the cost share program, we've gotten support letters from Senator Holland, Senator Braun, the superintendent of Basehor Linwood Schools, the resident where the fatality accidents that have occurred. And so we've compiled those 4 support letters with a comprehensive application packet, aerials, photographs of the site, a bunch of information that all works together in order to build your application packet. We're not just simply handing in a 2-page application. We're handing in a comprehensive application that has the alignment of the road and all the information that's available. The concerning part is going back to the budgets. The state's budget's being reduced. And so, for instance, the cost share program, which I was successful in getting a grant for Jefferson County in last year, they funded that with $36 million. They funded 20 projects statewide, and they had 105 applicants. And so they are, from what I understand from their webinar that they had on Monday, they are leaving all 85 of those applicants in the pool and not requiring those people to reapply for the grant process. So your pool is starting with 85 applicants in it already,
Right.
plus any of the new applications that they received, and they've reduced the funding down to $20 million.
I'm assuming we're not one of those 85.
No, we've never applied for it.
Right.
So
We're going to fix that, though.
yeah, we'll have an application in by the end of business today.
Awesome.
With gas tax being down about 50%.
Yeah, so they've reduced that. They're accepting all of the previous applications, which were from 18 months ago. So I would think that they would have wanted the counties and cities to
Reevaluate.
reapply to say that they still had the matching funds as available. With the current situation, people's fiscal situations change. And so I would, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, we put together a very comprehensive application, and we're currently working. I know that currently while we sit here right now, Warren is on a conference call with Mark, and I've attended all the ones previously as well since I've been here, but we are putting together a comprehensive application packet for several different projects through the STP funds and the grant applications with Mark. So we will be submitting for all of these, and we'll put together comprehensive application packets. It's the competition level as the economy kind of takes a downturn. The competition level for these is going to increase.
And if someone's awarded based on the application but then doesn't have the funds to match, would they then go back to that pool? Do you know?
Yeah, they go back, they get kicked out. You have to have the funds, and you have to demonstrate. So part of, especially the MARC process, and part of the issues that could have happened, I don't know if this was an issue in the past here in Leavenworth County or not, but part of the thing that you need to be able to point back to is a capital improvement plan. Without having an adopted capital improvement plan that identifies the fact that you have funding available, you get a reduction in your point values for the application. And so by having a capital improvement plan adopted prior to the application concluding May 29th is automatically putting us ahead of where we were prior to this meeting today.
And you said it was $36 million was what was available in 2020, so in 2021 it's going to be less.
So that's a Kansas cost share program. So in 2019 they had $36 million, and they awarded 20 projects, and then they didn't kick out the 85 that they didn't accept. And this year they're only handing out $20 million.
Okay.
And
So
they're
36 to 20.
Yeah, so they reduced it by not quite 50%, and the application pool is going to probably be
Twice as much.
200 people.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
you got a lot of competition. And so, but as far as the MARC funding goes, the MARC funding, part of the process is we got to have all of these things in place. The capital improvement plan gets you points, just like the local road safety plan gets you points. You need to be able to check the boxes that are applicable to the applications. And so we're going to work very hard in the future to make sure that we're meeting the criteria of all these, because we've got to put ourselves in a, we may not get them. I don't want to promise anything that's obviously a competitive thing, but we need to put ourselves in a position to be eligible for them if we were to happen to get those. It's important to be ready.
Makes sense.
Any other questions of Mr. Knoll?
This is Commissioner Steben. I just want to tell you, Bill, that I really appreciate your leadership and all your work on these grant applications and your support for county road construction and getting our fair share of state funds and the economic development standpoint. And I really appreciate your leadership, and I just want to express that.
Thank you.
Second.
Yep. Heard.
Aye.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. Yep. All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, guys.
Be sure to tell Lauren thanks to you. That's a lot of
All your staff.
hard work. Yeah.
They've
Good
been-
team.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't be happier with the staff and the way the transition has gone over the last quarter. And thank everybody for the opportunity to come over here and work with you guys.
Glad to have you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming over. All right. Ready for solid waste.
Didn't know if you're going to come do paper, rock, scissors.
We'll get back on the schedule.
Good morning.
How are you today, Tammy?
Hey, Tammy.
Tammy Saldivar, Director of Solid Waste. I'm with Bill on staff. As a leader in the waste industry, we have the responsibility to work with the customers and I'm extremely proud of how our team has been addressing the challenge faced with the virus. They've been doing an awesome job.
Your business has increased during the virus, it looks like. I said your business has increased during the virus, it looks like.
Yes, it has. Our tonnage the first 3 months of this year is up 15%. We're up by 1,455 customers over last year at this time.
1,400 above what you normally got?
Yeah.
Because everybody's staying home, cleaning out their garage and their yard.
The only thing that's down is we had one less trailer of grit over last year. But that's just due to weather, because when it rains, then we get grit. When it doesn't, we don't.
Okay.
We don't really have any cleanup to compare it to, because we did April to April last year, so the first quarter didn't affect it at all.
Have you had many people confused by that from the January to January?
Just one or two.
Okay.
But it's working out a lot better this way, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Calendar year?
For tracking and, yeah.
Okay.
And workload on your office, okay. That was my goal, was try to divide it up so you didn't have everybody come at the same time.
Right. And then, like I said, I've heard from one person that said the website wasn't updated time. It came and after the first year, and then came again in April. But I don't know, is our website updated on that, or was it updated?
I believe
timely?
so.
Okay.
We normally try to get that done the minute changes are approved.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions of Tammy on the solid waste? Pretty self-explanatory on your report.
It is.
Is it slowing down any? People cleaning up?
Well, I don't know. We had 225 through there yesterday, so
That would be a no.
I'm thinking not.
Okay. Well, maybe everybody get back to work pretty quick.
Tim, I know there's been a bunch of improvements out there. Has that all worked out well? I mean, as far as just the traffic flow and...
With our future requests for improvements, it will. With that many people, when you have that many trying to come in, that same amount trying to come out, you
Sure.
know, it gets congested.
But we want people to use the transfer station. We'd rather see it there than on the side of the road.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I'm glad people are using it.
Your team's fully staffed? You don't have any openings?
No. We had a scale operator quit in March. She wanted to spend time with her grandkids at home, but we have her replaced, and she started on the 25th, and the customers like her just as well, so that makes life easier. She's picking up on things, all the little details. She grounds us.
You have any equipment
New
replacements?
perspective, you know, so.
Yeah, sure. Do you have any equipment replacements this year you got to do, or?
No, we have that scheduled for 2023.
Okay.
We have had.
Commissioners, this is Mark. One thing that Tammy has been talking with me about, and we've been looking at, I think Commissioner Shipke brought up an efficiency thing, and we're looking at potentially adding another scale so that we can have an entrance scale and an exit scale and speed things up. So, Tammy, you might want to just bring that up. It's something you'll be seeing come forward.
Okay. Yeah, we have been working with Aaron on getting an outbound scale, and it would be on the east side of the property, the back.
Mm-hmm.
So customers coming in would come in, unload, exit out, instead of the lines. that also will help us utilize all 6 bays, because when you have 100 people coming in, 100 people coming out, it's 1, 1, 1, 1, and so not all bays are getting utilized.
Right.
So I expect that would increase our utilization by 50%.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that's something you'll budget for next year, or you have it in your budget for this year?
Well, with talking with Janet, I have it in my cash now, but we went ahead and put it in for the 2021 budget, or we
Okay.
are, because then that would be January, which is a good time to do improvements out there.
Okay.
And is that not, when we look at like our rates, for example, is that not something that we could potentially, recoup for? I mean, I realize that our position has never been for your operation to be a profit center. Try to operate as close to break even, but if we're going to have capital expenditures, you would think that we could leverage our pricing so that we could still try to land at a break even
That's
and
the
improve the
plan.
facility, right? So, okay,
And with the increase in customers, daily,
sure. And they're happier.
yeah, and they'll be even happier when they
Yeah,
don't have to
once you
sit in
go
line for 2 hours.
Right.
Entrance and an exit and Scale, yeah, that's a good idea.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
That does make a lot of sense.
the vision I have is just awesome. So-
Well, it's a safety issue.
It is. Because where we stage the outcoming is where people stage to back in, so.
Right.
Probably should have been, when they built the transfer station, it probably should have been that way.
You are correct.
And there's a lot of things that should have been done when they built the transfer station.
The only other thing we've been struggling with is, I had a meeting with Hams, and we get like 50 loads a year of straight foam, which cost us, up to $700 a trailer to get rid of. We had our safety committee meeting in January, and we discussed that, and I talked with Mark, and so we did implement like a 1-ton limit on a 10-yard, 2-ton limit on a 20-yard. It's still not deterring them from bringing that material there, so I don't know really what to do about that, but those loads should actually be direct hauling to the landfill.
Talking about hard styrofoam for,
Yeah, like roofing styrofoam,
and for pouring
those
voids,
big foam blocks that they use to insulate, I guess.
well, they're for pouring voids in concrete. Like if they're for pouring voids in concrete, like if you're gonna put a air duct through a concrete, they'll put a piece of styrofoam there, pour the concrete, and then they pop the styrofoam out, so it leaves a void.
Oh.
Is that what you're talking about, like big chunks of hard styrofoam?
Yeah, it's big, huge chunks of
Yeah.
styrofoam, and it just fills up the trailer, and, you can't compact it, you can't do anything with it, but
Yeah.
haul it out. And we have a 22-ton minimum on our trailers now. If we didn't have the minimum, it wouldn't be a big deal. But we have a minimum, and when we have those loads, we're only getting like 14-ton in a trailer.
Right. Takes up a lot of space, doesn't weigh much.
It does. So I don't know if that's something we can just direct customers that, they just need to go ahead and direct haul that. Like
That
I
has
said,
to be
it only
approved by
comes
a
up
solid
like 50
waste
times a
committee?
year.
That would be something that Solid Waste Committee would meet on and approve, or?
No, it doesn't have to be, but we have discussed it, and they're on board with that.
Okay.
Commissioners, I think that the minimum fee is one of the ways we're trying to address it and see how that plays out.
Okay.
Yeah, at some point you'll outprice it, so.
Yeah.
All right.
But other than that, that's all I have.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Look forward
Thank
to
you,
discussing that
Tammy,
new
everybody's
scale
been able
with
to,
you.
your team, everybody's been able to stay healthy. I mean, you guys obviously interact a lot with the public, so
Yes, we are.
Okay.
good deal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Yoakum, how are you today?
Good. Good morning, Commissioners. Buildings and Grounds Quarterly Report. So we had previously budgeted in on the Justice Center to continue on with our LED replacement, this time the battery backup. We are almost complete with that. The Justice Center did have an A.O. Smith hot water heater go down permanently. We've since piped it through our Camus boiler and then used a storage tank. Since then, we have another storage tank issue, but that will be addressed in our contractual that we have available for funds. My team took use of the courthouse being closed. We finished painting all of the lower entry and the handicap area, as well as retiling on the inside of the elevator. It's hard to believe we're going back to as far as like the start of the year. 319 Walnut is down. Grass is growing. Speaking of grass, we took over mowing internally, purchased 2 mowers. Schedule on that's going well. My guys have adapted to it. Extreme kudos to them. We really work as a team and take care of it.
Looks great.
So we had a flooring RFP go out. It was awarded. It's under the spending limit, so it didn't need to come to you, but then it is on pause until Treasurer's Office feels a little bit more comfortable about having people in their space during this pandemic, which it should be. I should be working with her shortly to move that forward. Really, it's for us, it's almost been business as usual, just taking care of projects that we normally can't do as the courthouse was closed to public.
So, yeah, the lawn does look good. So whatever you're doing to the lawn, I'd keep doing it.
We are working at it diligently.
I hope you don't want to go to like artificial or anything out there.
No, but I'd like it to look like it is.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, no, you can tell the difference.
Aaron, your team's fully staffed, no
We
openings,
are
vacancies?
currently short one. We are filling that slot shortly.
Okay. The flooring, you're not doing that. You hire that, correct?
That was bid out, yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Anybody have any questions, Aaron, on any of this? Pretty self-explanatory. We see what you do every day. Okay. Are you going to do the sewer districts too?
Sewer districts, we really didn't have any major issues. All of our reports went in as normal in our quarterlies. Mike does a great job of preparing for weather and making sure that we don't have any issues when we have heavy downfalls of rain and that. We're slowly
KDHE's happy. We should be happy.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. And then you're working on your list of wants and needs.
We, as directed last year, we have put together a capital improvement plan as well. It would take away our capital outlay projects, so you wouldn't see them individualized. You'd see a 5-year plan, and then every year adding that next year as we roll a year off. Previous people in my position might not have looked parking lot wise, exterior building wise. We've been lacking. The expenditure it shows an increase in my budget, and you guys will see it. I'll work with Mark. We'll have conversations on it. The exterior of this building was addressed when I first got here. We had an issue with an entrance that's still a concern. Parking lots like EMS stations 2, getting to them before they fail down to the sub-base. Forecasting where we need to start spending money and appropriating that so that we see it in the future rather than a knee-jerk reaction is what we're looking for, and how Mark directed us to start planning ahead.
Yeah, you can kick the can down the road too many years and it will cost you more. I'm afraid that's where we're at on County Road 1 right now. And in your parking lot, you're absolutely right. That parking lot has had a Band-Aid put on it for years down at EMS. So.
Yes. It would be in the capital improvement plan that I put forward. Partial, you guys will see later on, as Mark sees shortly as well when we turn in our budgets. Part of the exterior of this building, as well as EMS2's parking lot, was one of the first in that plan.
Sure like to extend the parking lot down at the annex at Tonganoxie too, and I just don't see that. You know, we should have did that when they purchased the building and remodeled it. They should have went ahead and done the parking lot at that time. You'd have never done it any cheaper.
Probably not.
But maybe they didn't expect it to get so much use.
We can start forecasting for that, sir.
Okay.
Looks great, Aaron.
Anybody have any questions of Aaron?
That's Commissioner Stephen. I'd just like to express my appreciation to everything you've done, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank
All
you,
right.
ma'am.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Aaron.
You guys have a good day.
You too.
Was waiting for Jeff to second that.
Yeah, second that. We'll vote on it. There you go. All right. We have any other business for the board? The LCDC meeting, I believe, is tomorrow.
Yes.
You'll be attending that?
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else attending that?
I think it's at noon.
I'm not.
I shouldn't say attending.
Zoom.
Zoom.
There's something else at
This is
10:30.
Commissioner Todd.
Yes?
Did you want me to provide you with any information on the governor's conference call on Friday?
I do.
Okay. Well, I think one of the most interesting things that came out of that meeting was that working with KU, that they are now testing wastewater for the COVID-19 virus DNA. And first of all, it has identified, I believe that I just happened to have read in Hiawatha where they had 0 cases reported, it was found in the wastewater, so they knew that they at least had asymptomatic people in that community. So for us, it doesn't mean a whole lot except that as cases go down, and if anybody or a community or a county were to get to 0 reports and they test the wastewater, they can detect if there's an influx and an increase of asymptomatic people to help assist with tracking the virus in the future. So I think that was one of the interesting things, and I think yesterday it was announced that for the unemployment funds for the independent contractors that went into play yesterday, and those individuals who have not received any financial assistance through unemployment, who were business independent contractor business owners, can now apply for and receive unemployment compensation, and that at this point they still don't know if there's a whole lot of backsliding, but it looks very promising to move forward to the next phase, which is supposed to happen, this weekend?
May 18th, I believe.
Right.
Be next
and
Monday.
So it appears so far it appears that we're on track for the state to move to phase 2.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for attending that, or on conference call.
No problem.
And then, how did the farmers market go this weekend? Did it open last weekend?
So I didn't, it was on Saturday, the drive-through. I had conversations with the contact, Austin Reynolds, I believe, who had reached out to us, and was trying to make some connection between the farmers market and maybe some of the larger facilities, whether that be a high school, for example, that might provide for way more parking lot and accessibility, both in vendors and traffic, and not create as much congestion downtown. But I don't know how it went.
Okay. And like I said, I think we all share a concern about the CARE Act fund money that's at the state and how we've got to apply to get it. This
This is Commissioner Cos.
Yes.
that's one thing that I did forget. It's in my notes. The governor has formed a task force to review and look at the distribution of the CARES fund.
I just assumed
Commissioner Stephen, Commissioner Todd, do we know who's on the task force?
I did not. I was not able to get that written down. There was, but it's. So, in answer to your question, no, I don't know at this time.
Okay.
I just assumed it'd be distributed based on population.
That was the intent.
Okay.
And so for those that don't know, so there's a threshold of 500,000, I believe, is the population, whether that be specific to, say, a city or within a county. And so those are obviously the
winners.
The winners. That's a great way of putting it. Those that get to apply directly. We do know that areas that did get to apply directly, like Johnson County, already received their funding. So now the state's going to decide how to allocate it to the rest of us, which probably isn't a very good equation for us. So.
I don't feel good about it. And then they said, is that the only meeting, the LCDC meeting tomorrow? Is there anything? Baser's got a city council meeting tonight.
10:30 in the morning, there's a phone mark meeting for KDOT call for projects.
Yeah, Bill, I said
Okay.
yeah.
I was going to listen in on that.
Okay.
I had just a couple of things real quick. So I attended the Fire District 1
that's right.
board meeting work session last week. So I want to thank Janet from the county and Beth from the city of Lansing came in and did just kind of a 101 on how funds are collected and obviously allocated, between, the city, the townships, the county being the collection vehicle and then distribution thereof. So overall, that was good. They had a special meeting, executive session that I wasn't a part of, so I don't have any updates there. But the big thing that I forgot to make an announcement on last week was the resignation of Chief Todd Farley, who I want to thank. He's been incredible, great leader. That's some of the things we've talked about today is just the leadership in and around the county. So I just want to thank him for his service. He's done an amazing job. It's very troublesome that he felt he needed to leave. Totally understand why he feels that way and wish him the absolute best. And then one other thing I forgot last week was Country Place Senior Living in Baser actually had a parade for all of their their nursing home residents. And I actually have a grandmother that was there, so I was a part of the parade. I wanted to, thank Country Place Senior Living, all of their staff, but the 100-plus people who showed up in automobiles from 50 years old to the latest and greatest. I thought that was amazing seeing the community because clearly there's not that many people that live there, but there was a ton of support for it. So kudos to them and those in and around Baser and the county that helped to support it. I thought that was in light of the world we live in today. That was a very positive from last week that I forgot to report on.
Well, being you brought up Baser, we have a Baser resident, Anna Mary Landauer, who turned 102 years young last week. She's going strong.
Awesome.
It's amazing, but I'm sure we'll be celebrating her birthday next year at this time. Really good shape. And might add, she was, in the past, she was the mayor of Baser in her past, and that would have been in the late 80s, I believe. Could have been early 90s, late 80s, I know. She was the mayor. Been very active in Baser for many, many years, I guess, 102. So, but I just want to wish her a happy birthday. It's a little late. I believe her birthday was last week one day. Probably the 5th or 6th of May, I think it was. So, anyways, does anybody else have anything that meetings they need to attend?
It's Commissioner Cross here. I might want to also make sure everybody knows that Lansing High School is going to have a parade drive-by parade for their graduating seniors this weekend, and then Leavenworth Senior High School next weekend.
Okay. There'll be drive through graduation or drive by parades? Or?
They have a route that they have identified, and they'll be driving through neighborhoods so that the people can stand in their yards and congratulate them or put up signs or whatever they choose to do to acknowledge.
Okay.
One last thing, Mr. Loffer, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
If you could, maybe you already know this, but if not, maybe work with Janice and Janet, but I know the sales tax, that's something we've been talking about a ton and we haven't been able to get real-time data for, but property tax collections, my guess is, if I understood Janet last week, we'll probably have a pretty good feel for where we're at on that this week. There's some speculation between property taxes that are collected as a part of mortgages, and clearly, mortgages being what they are, there's a high likelihood of those taxes being paid. A lot of other property taxes outside of mortgages, since we were unable to move that deadline, given it's a state, the state runs that, not the county, which is still shocking to me. But do we have any feel for what that shortfall is yet? And if not, is that something we could get an update on at your convenience?
I'll check on what numbers are available, but typically we wouldn't know until later in the year. I mean, we get our second distribution, but those are all funds that would have been collected already. So, but I'll check with the clerk and the treasurer just see what we can get updated.
Right, because second half payments were due Monday. So
yeah, there was no extension. Okay. And then I'd read an article where USDA invests $71 million for high-speed broadband for rural Kansas and Oklahoma. Don't know any of the details what that will be and where, but I don't know how far the $71 million will go for two states in rural areas.
if it runs through the state, not very far.
That's what I'm saying. But if USDA and other people and other organizations put in, I mean, there's a need. How do we get there? I don't know.
Yeah, I had a conversation last week with Superintendent Lansing, and that's we've heard it, in every comp plan meeting, that there's this need, and then everybody realized it when you send home K through 12, just how big that need is in rural areas, and unfortunately, we're not in a position to fix it. I wish
we were.
Utility companies would take it much more serious, because it's now not about Netflix, it's about educating the youth. So.
Well, it's also about working from home.
Sure.
A lot of people
Absolutely.
are working from home now. Maybe the federal government will come through with a plan. So, if we don't have anything else, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Voting. Aye.
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 Commissioner Todd,
Thanks, everybody.
Mr. Stevens,
Thanks, everybody, for participating.